2017 was... 2017 was... 2017 was... Oh, God. Gee, why? Why does this happen? Ugh. It's My Favorite Things 2017. I've become so numb, I can't feel you. Toko Toko TV is a little gem of a YouTube channel that puts out these beautifully intimate mini documentaries focusing on different creatives from around Japan. So far, they've covered people like Yoko Taro of the Drakengard/Nier series, Daisuke Ishiwatari, who's the lead musician, character designer, and director of the Guilty Gear series, and my personal favourite, Suda51, the insane genius behind No More Heroes and Killer 7. What makes Toko Toko TV shine, however, is the insanely high production values. The 10 to 20 minute documentaries are beautifully shot, scored, and edited, and it makes them feel like so much more than just a basic interview, as we follow the different creatives through various aspects of their daily lives, from their offices to batting cages to even the bars and haunts they frequent after hours, as they all the while muse on different aspects of their creative process. It's highly informative, tremendously relaxing, and a terrific insight into some of Japan's greatest modern creators.
それって僕自身が東京出てきて社会の仕組みの中に自分が入り込めない。だけど自分の居場所を探す行為自体がどこかゲームの中のプレイヤーに近いような感覚もあって、それをなるべく人間という個の存在と、それから社会というものと、都市というもの。
Austin Eruption is one of those YouTubers I've been watching for years and who was massively influential into me getting into YouTube in the first place. And to see the appeal of his channel look no further than his recent video on The Bouncer. The Bouncer is a somewhat forgotten PS2 launch title that wasn't very well received upon its initial release and isn't overly fondly remembered today. In other words, a 20-minute video analysis of it is never going to end up on trending or garner world-shattering views. So the question is, why would someone make a video like this in the first place? And the answer is that Austin just really genuinely cares about exploring and preserving the weirder, more obscure side of video games. And he does so with a passion and earnestness that makes his videos not only entertaining, but deeply endearing. And hell, in a time where buffoonic idiot children are doing increasingly heinous things for views, Austin is exactly the kind of YouTuber I really wish there were more of. Someone who puts passion and energy into talking about what they love and does a damn fine job doing so. For further viewing, I'd also highly recommend his video on the bizarre Onichambara series, as well as his videos on Persona 5 or his Odin Sphere Luftheiser review. One of the most interesting things happening in the anime industry right now is without doubt the Japan Animator Expo, a project designed to give young up-and-coming talent a chance to direct their own animated shorts, which has resulted in some of the most beautiful and striking pieces of animation in recent years, with titles like Me 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 and Cassette Girl. And I was recently lucky enough to be part of a giant anime YouTuber collab project where different members of the community do a short piece on their favourite films, featuring superstars of the scene like Keiko Cat, Giguk, Digibro, the Anime Man, Some Other Idiot, and a host of other ultra-talented YouTubers. Hats off to the channel Mr. Nice Guy, who somehow pulled this logistical nightmare together, and I'd really recommend checking it out as it's a great way to find some new talent on YouTube, as well as discover some really stunning little collections of anime. Speaking of which, the Blood Spray of Ishikawa Goemon is a film set in the Lupin III universe, starring the titular Goemon. And what I love about this movie is that it's basically all the best parts of an old school samurai film boiled down into a tightly produced, beautifully animated 50-minute package. Goemon, the undefeatable samurai, is, well, defeated by a giant man wielding twin axes, and so embarks on some extreme shark-based training in hopes of a rematch with his seemingly invincible bearded nemesis. It's got all the swagger and style you'd expect from a modern Lupin title, but the two centerpieces of the movie are a pair of stunningly animated and choreographed action sequences, one of which features Goemon cutting his way through an entire army of Yakuza, and the other being the climactic showdown, which for my money is the most goddamn intense action scene of any piece of media from 2017. If you have any interest in samurai movies or just want to see the most spectacularly animated fight scene of the year, do not sleep on this one. Inuyashiki's intro is everything I love about anime OPs. It's ridiculously overdramatic with some beautifully striking visuals and a pounding intensity that gets me pumped to watch the following episode. And that same intensity can be found in the show itself, telling the story of two characters who find themselves transformed into ultra-powerful weaponized robots, one of whom is the kindest, sweetest old man in existence whose best friend is a very good dog, and the other is a chilling, sociopathic, murderous teenager. The series treats both these characters as its protagonists, using the juxtaposition of how each uses its powers to highlight the innocence and cruelty inherent to each, as well as steadily building to their inevitable showdown. I should probably mention, however, that this is a title from Hiroya Oku, the creator of Gantz, and no one writes human cruelty quite like he does. The series seeds with a violent heart and revels in scenes of maliceness and human agony, and so if you're of an in any way delicate disposition, tread lightly going into this one. Devilman Crybaby recently came out and it's sensational, but it came out in 2018, which means talking about it in this video would be illegal. But the director of Crybaby, Masaki Yuasa, is for my money the most visually distinctive director of the last decade, and also directed two stunning animated feature films in 2017, The Night is Short Walk On Girl and Lu Over the Wall, the former being a surreal adventure that takes place over the course of a single night, following a young woman who downs a copious amount of alcohol and becomes increasingly intertwined in the different stories taking place in the city around her. Lu Over the Wall, on the other hand, is a more grounded story about three teenagers who form a band with a mermaid, which may not be as visually distinctive as Walk On Girl, but packs a good deal more emotional punch, while still showcasing Yuasa's flat but strikingly beautiful visual style. Both movies demonstrate why Yuasa is considered such a creative juggernaut, and so if you did find yourself pounding all 10 episodes of Crybaby and are hungry for something more, you cannot go wrong with these two. Land of the Lustrous is a story of a group of mysterious women made of gemstones attempting to fight off a mysterious extraterrestrial threat. And if that sounds familiar to Steven Universe, it really isn't. In fact, there's nothing quite like this show. From the incredibly striking visuals that feel built from the ground up to take advantage of 3D, as opposed to simply trying to mimic 2D, to the deliciously intriguing story telling the tale of three warring factions. The core appeal of this show, apart from how gosh dang beautiful it is in slowly coming to understand the conflict of this world in a narrative that parallels titles like Nier Automata, but also feels distinctly like its own thing. Such a unique show means it's definitely not going to be for everybody, but that's exactly why you should watch it. This is one of my best surprises of 2017, and something I really wish more people were talking about. So please do check out this beautiful little hidden gem of a show. Haha! Patreon.com/SuperEyePatchWolf. I'm becoming this, all I want to do. The Evil Within is without doubt one of the most disappointing games I played in 2014. While the game itself wasn't particularly terrible, some poor encounter design, a badly paced story, and a group of systems that never really felt like they clicked together meant that the title was left with a staggering amount of untapped potential. But now, 3 years later, that potential has finally been realised with the imaginatively titled Evil Within 2. Taking the player out of the tight, cramped corridors of the first game and dropping them into the beautifully intimate yet fantastically open world environment of Union, a small backwater American town infested with monsters that are both terrifying and dangerous, that force the player to play extremely cautiously, making each scrap of ammo, health pickup, and bullet shot really feel like they matter. I understand that this is an easy game to sleep on given its lackluster prequel, but trust me, if you have any fondness for survival horror, The Evil Within 2 delivers. Scrolling beat-em-ups are not a genre that have aged gracefully. Their origins as coin-gobbling 40-minute experiences mean that they never quite found their footing past the 16-bit generation, which is why it's always exciting to see a modern take on them done as well as something like Fight and Rage, a gorgeous old-school beat-em-up featuring beautiful pixel art running at a fidelity that was completely impossible on older machines. Each of the game's 3 playable characters has their own distinctive playstyle that seems simple at first, but once you start digging into the characters and just how versatile their moveset is, it allows for some insanely satisfying combos as you decimate entire screens full of the game's inventively designed enemies. Doki Doki Literature Club is a fun and charming dating sim where nothing goes wrong at all. This is one of those games where you're better off going in knowing as little as possible. But what I will say is if you've enjoyed any of the horror content I've done in the past, just know this is something I really thoroughly recommend and something I may talk about more in a future video. If you've never played a Danganronpa game, the premise is this: 16 genius-level high school students, all of whom have specific talents in areas like fighting or rockstar, are trapped in an isolated location by a maniacal mechanized bear, where the only way to escape is to murder a fellow classmate and not be found guilty in a class trial, which serves as the absurdly entertaining premise for this visual novel series. The real joy of these titles, however, comes from the extremely entertaining and endearing cast. While most of them come across as pretty tropey at first, eventually they reveal themselves to be surprisingly well developed and likable, setting up perfectly for the inevitable gut punches, as your favourite characters are either killed or revealed to be the killer. The third game in the mainline series recently released, and about halfway through, this may be my favourite so far, playing on and subverting the expectations that are established in the previous games expertly, and doing so with an absolutely stellar cast of characters. If you're curious, my favourite character is Mew because I'm a garbage person who likes garbage things. Be more like me and be less like you. I can count the amount of Marvel movies I've enjoyed on anything, because there's one and it was Guardians of the Galaxy, which is why it was such a surprise to me that one of my favourite movies this year ended up being Thor Ragnarok. But Marvel sure as hell don't need me to plug their multi-billion-dollar franchise, so the reason I bring it up at all is that the director of Thor Ragnarok is also one of my favourite directors of recent times, Taika Waititi. And I wanted to take this opportunity to plug his other movies, namely What We Do in the Shadows, which is a comedic mockumentary focusing on a group of socially inept vampires, and my personal favourite of his, Hunt for the Wilder People, which is an equally hilarious and touching story of a man and a boy on the run from the law, surviving alone in the woods, which is a great movie to watch with just about anybody.
Stop running.
Yeah, and I'll never stop chasing you. I'm relentless. I'm like the Terminator.
I'm more like Terminator than you.
I said it first, you're more like Sarah Connor. In the first movie too, before she could do chin-ups.
There's a particular brand of modern humour I like that I'm just going to call broken comedy. And anyone who's a fan of the Eric Andre show will know exactly what I'm talking about. And one of my favourite broken comedies of recent times is the show Nathan For You. I have been struggling with how to describe this show, so I'm going to leave one of my favourite clips of it in the description below. It's about Nathan Fielder, who's an awkward business graduate, and his ludicrous attempts to revive failing local businesses. For example, in one episode, he sets up a scenario where a local electronics shop has a sale selling its TVs for $1 to drum up publicity, but if customers want to get to the TV, they have to crawl through a room with an alligator in it. It's really weird, but if it sounds like something you might enjoy, then you probably will. Finally, a few book recommendations. If you have any investment at all in old school SNK Neo Geo arcade titles, then I would highly recommend tracking down Neo Geo: A Visual History. This tome of a book extensively catalogues Neo Geo's arcade legacy through beautifully high-res photos of old arcade hardware, classic Neo Geo box art, and concept sketches from their flagship titles, such as King of Fighters, Fatal Fury, and even the unreleased Garo Mark of the Wolves 2. And just look at this old King of Fighter box art. How fucking cool did these guys look? It's just so perfect. Ugh. I know this is a kind of thing that maybe 2% of my audience is actually going to care about, but for the ones that do, I can't recommend this book enough. Another book really worth reading, especially if you have any interest in games and the industry around them, is Jason Schreier's Blood, Sweat and Pixels, a collection of essays documenting the making of some of the biggest video games of the last decade, and the hellfire their developers had to crawl through in order to create them, cataloguing the development of titles like the one-man indie superhit Stardew Valley, all the way to the utterly disastrous production of Destiny. It's a fascinating and stressful read, but a must if you either work in or are interested in entering the world of video game developments. And to conclude, my absolute favourite thing of 2017 was Kazuchika Okada versus Kenny Omega's explosive showdown at the 2017 G1 Climax. It's you, it's still you, the audience. Whether you're a new subscriber or someone who's been around since the early days, I want to thank you for sticking with me in a year that saw this channel get, quite frankly, a ludicrous amount of support. Whether you just watch the videos, contribute to me on Patreon, or if you're one of those insanely talented people who's been drawing me fan art, which I really can't thank enough. It makes my day whenever I get one of these things. I think in the grander scheme of things, 2017 was a difficult year for a lot of people. A year that saw hate and bigotry become more widespread than any time I can recall, honestly. And I'm aware that in the face of that, 20-minute YouTube videos about anime aren't especially significant. But if this channel or the series it recommends did provide even a little escapism for you this year, then I'll consider every late night and early morning worth it. And really, I just want to thank you for letting me do this. On a lighter note, I'm going to be at AkumaCon in Galway next weekend on Saturday the 20th and Sunday the 21st of January. So if you're around, do stop by. I'm going to be doing some panels. I'll be back soon with another video, but as ever, you can come find me on the Let's Fight a Boss video game podcast or on Twitter at iPatchWolf. Take care of yourselves, and I'll see you next time.